Hello and welcome to Card Shop Insiders, a podcast where we bring together decades of experience from both sides of the counter to take you inside the business of local game stores and collectible gaming hobbies. I'm Noah and I play games, lots of them.
I'm John and I'm the card shop owner and 25-year veteran of the industry.
Well, with our combined perspectives, we're ready to take you inside, so let's go ahead and jump in.
All right, hold on one second, Noah. I just want to clarify something. I want people to understand that this podcast is a work in progress, so be patient with us. We're all ears if you have any suggestions for improving it. I want to mention that I'm only skimming the surface of starting a card shop and the insider information I provide. As we get to future podcasts, I will give more detailed and in-depth insights, so just be patient and bear with us. All right, now go ahead.
I appreciate that, John. I think that's a great piece of information for us to have, and I certainly hope that in future topics we'll jump back into some of the things that we've talked about and go deeper. But why don't we start where we've been the last couple of weeks with news and updates from the store.
Again, it's been very busy. This coming Friday is the new Magic Outlaws of Thunder Junction pre-releases. So the product is coming in today, which is good because it gives me more of an opportunity to put it into inventory and put it up on the shelves and get ready. But I can't sell the product until Friday. Lorcana still continues to do well, to the point where everybody's looking forward to the store championship that we're going to have. And what I've done is I've limited it to 16 players, and I've made it an invite only. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the previous podcast, but I want to take care of the players that come into the store first. So right now we have 12 signed up. There's 4 additional spots, just waiting to see if anybody else will contact me. I haven't put it out into the newsletter yet, but I may today, or it's definitely going to be next week. Maybe we could fill those 4 spots. And if we don't, that's fine too. Now, one of the biggest things this week is Star Wars. Everybody realizes that Star Wars has been a monumental game for Fantasy Flight. And it's to the point where I just don't have any more product to sell. I understand that all the stores are in similar positions. They're not supposed to be coming out with any restocks until sometime in May. There's no specific time in May. From what I was told, sometime in May. So I'm projecting out maybe 5 or 6 weeks. I do have some stock available. However, I'm using that stock specifically for my weekly play people that come in. So they'll come in, they'll pay a fee, they'll get a regular booster pack, and then they'll get one of those weekly play promo packs each week that they come in. And if I have 15 players, which I pretty much had this past Saturday, over the next 6 weeks, you're talking, 90 packs that I have to put aside? So the stock that I have, I'm squirreling it away, and I'm saving it for my regular, people who come in the store all the time.
Well, that'll dovetail pretty nicely into the topic that we're going to address today with getting product and distribution. But one other thing I thought in terms of news that we might talk about is just the popularity of organized play for Lorcana in particular, and the challenge event that has been announced for Atlanta. There was an initial limitation of the tickets in the 500 range. But there was great news. Ravensburger was able to schedule a bigger venue and expand that event. Now, it's my understanding they nearly quadrupled what they've got, and they're doing over 2,000 people at an in-person paper Lorcana tournament. How do you think that affects the game and stores like this?
Oh, it's fantastic. However, for that particular weekend, which is May 25th and 26th, it's going to take 5 or 6 people away from my store. But that's fine as long as they go down there and have a good time, because they're going to come back and they're going to tell other people, hey, this was great. We were there with over 2,000 people and it was an exciting event. And, they're just going to, that enthusiasm is going to spill over to other people. Now, I have the official Ravensburger release information that they came out with as far as increasing that event. And yeah, they're going from 512 people initially up to 2,048. And as you mentioned, they have to move it to a bigger venue. And it's directly across the street from where they were going to have it. And it's going to be at the Georgia World Congress Center, which, it's great. I mean, it's fantastic to see the popularity of the game. And again, I believe Ravensburger underestimated the potential for this game. Getting back to the Lorcana event in Atlanta and the information that they posted. And what they said is the challenge events moving forward, they're going to look at increasing all these events. And they're going to start using, instead of their own way of signing up, they're going to be using Melee. And I believe, this is the official statement, to address feedback that tickets should only be going to those players looking to attend the event, we plan to use Melee, our tournament platform, for future event tickets to ensure all who purchase tickets are doing so with the account they're registering for the tournament with. This gives us more control over removing bad actors, not only from the individual event, but future Lorcana events as well. And I found that to be very interesting. So I guess they're aware of, people getting multiple tickets and possibly selling them themselves.
Oh, I think absolutely people were trying to sell the tickets. I think it's an interesting move on Ravensburger's part to try to keep organization, keep things fair and open, try to control the pricing of it. You can't buy one of these on the secondhand market if it's coming through Melee. I think it's a cool idea. I think anything that they can do to make it accessible, increasing the cap. I also think that this is a problem that's going to fade. This is the first major competitive tournament that's been run in the game officially by Ravensburger. There have been big tournaments. There was just a huge tournament in Poland this last week. There's been big tournaments on the internet using the online platform that's not official. But this is the first big chance for people to get together, play these, get the promos that they announced for this. And then they're also going to be announcing like formal organized play with some sort of a championship series with a declared world champion, right? So I think as they get into that, you'll have the group of people that play Lorcana split into really three groups. There'll be like the world championship competitors. There'll be the people that find competitive play to be fun, and then there'll be your store level casual players. Once they do that, they're not going to have trouble with these events being overly populated. But
Noah, look at the potential for increased revenue for the cities that are hosting these events. So other cities, big cities, maybe Raleigh in the future, other places in the United States where this is really popular, are going to start contacting Ravensburger and say, hey, why don't you hold an event here? Why don't you come to our convention center? And it's good for the local population, and it gives players an opportunity to play close without having to drive or fly. Like the guys here are going to be traveling to Georgia, and that's 6.5 to 7 to 8 hours. Going down to Atlanta from here. So I think it's good for local economies that host these events also.
I think it's great. I think it's going to be, like you said, people bring back energy. It'll reinvigorate people that didn't get to go to want to play more and maybe prepare to play in a future big tournament like that.
Yeah. Well, any knowledge about Star Wars doing the same thing? I mean, I'm kind of out of the loop sometimes about this.
Star Wars announced in their release packet of information and in the video series that they did that they were going to have this type of organized play, and they broke it down. I think they used Star Wars words, but like sector and district and galaxy level events. But more of that information is supposed to be coming out as they get deeper into set releases, which again, the biggest news from them is Gamma. They announced the date is July 12th for second set release. They showed some preview cards. They did the live stream this week with some discussion of preview cards and mechanics. The game is still very exciting. They're adding stuff that I think is going to make the game more exciting. They're adding IP and content that is going to make people want to get involved with the game. And it's going to be an issue of supply. Just making sure that there's enough available, that we have enough locally to satisfy the demand that we get here. And I think it's really cool, and maybe you have a different opinion. It's your shop and you run it, but I think it's really cool to have a product like that is showing like huge momentum out the gate and gives you an opportunity with a new IP and with a new game that's showing this kind of success with planned organized play. It gives you an opportunity to know you can buy this stuff and it's gonna sell.
It does, but again, I buy product sometimes on gut feeling, knowing my customers, not overpopulating my shelves with stock that may or may not sell. And my position is I'll buy what I think could sell, and if I need more, I'll try to get it. If I can't get it, oh well. I mean, I'd rather be out of something than be stuck with something. Getting back to the Star Wars, I found something very interesting. We also run Magic Commander on Saturdays. A couple of Magic Commander players who normally come in to play Magic Commander started coming in and playing Star Wars, which I said, are you playing Commander today? Oh, no, we're playing Star Wars. And they signed up for the weekly play, and they had a great time. So I think the game is really a winner.
I think it is too. It's a lot of fun. John, let's wrap the news up there and let's talk for a second about what we're going to talk about today and transition over to our main topic, which, as we said before and as you gave the announcement, just a reminder, we brushed over some concepts last week about how you get your space and about how you get the physical store established. But the next step is really getting product in a store, because it's not a store if you've got nothing to sell. So that's our intention today, is to talk about like where you get product from, how you get into that. And I think we've mentioned it, and it's obvious that the first thing we need to talk about is distribution, John. So why don't you share with us a little bit about how you get started, maybe overview on distribution, and then how you get started with a distributor. How do you pick who you're going to get your stuff from?
Okay. Well, the first thing you have to understand is what you're going to carry. What kind of a store are you going to have? Are you going to have a store that has board games and every other type of gaming thing out there? And it depends upon the size of your store and how much of an investment you want to make. I would recommend at the beginning you start at bare bones minimum, and unless you have a lot of money in your pocket, because it's expensive. Now, what you need to do is establish a storefront first. And then you got to take pictures of it, and you got to fill out an application to apply at different distributors, because they will not let you set up an account unless you have a storefront. Most of the distributors, some of them are a little bit shady, you can get around it, but because they sell to people who sell on the internet only. And they may have a storefront that they pose or something like that. But yeah, you have to take interior pictures. You have to take pictures of your POS system, your cash register system, your counter space and your display space and things like that. And then you search for distributors. And there's a couple of good ones out there. And there's a couple I've mentioned before that I wouldn't particularly go with them, because there's different requirements for them. And they're a little bit more geared to selling to people who sell online. I have a couple of great ones. Over the years, I've been in this business 25 years, and I have a couple of good ones. I was at the point where at one time I was ordering directly from Wizards, and Wizards themselves would send it out. But they stopped that a couple of years ago, and now they sell for themselves on Amazon. And sometimes their products are selling on Amazon far less than I could buy from my distributor. So that's the first process. Then the second process is what do you want to pay? How do you want to pay for it? Because naturally distributors are going to say, hey, you're a brand new store. They're going to want your credit information. They're going to run it, they want to run your credit check. And I do everything on my debit card. My most predominant distributor, he said, why don't you open up an account as far as credit? God, I just don't want to. I said, number one, they do a hard credit check, which I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But I just don't want to go through that procedure. I'd rather pay with my debit card. I get 1.5% back on everything that I purchase. So it works out better for me. And when the stuff comes in, I usually get onto my Capital One account and pay it right off. But yeah, you can go through and open up an account with them. And you got to be very careful, because you got to be able to pay for that stuff. And they'll go after you if you don't pay for it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people should know in trying to start a business, you mentioned it last week, you can use credit cards to fund stuff. But credit cards versus bank loans, this isn't a financial podcast by any means, but knowing the products that you're working with and the liabilities that attach to that, the risk that's attached to that, and the interest that can accrue if you're unable to make payments, I think is a really important thing. So before a listener goes out and says, I'm going to go ahead and use a credit card to buy all of my inventory for the store, it's important to research and understand how much that's really going to cost you, because a $10,000 purchase that you don't pay off right away that's got 20% interest is going to be accruing you a substantial amount of additional payments over what you paid for it, where there's a possibility that you could get a bank loan for substantially less, or you don't need $10,000 worth of stuff possibly to start off with. I do think that from my perspective, you've got to have stuff on the shelves, because what I don't want to do is walk into a new store and see that they've put up slat wall, that they've got shelving set up, and they've got 2 booster boxes of the latest Magic product, and they've got 1 booster box each of Lorcana, and they've got a Star Wars thing. Maybe they've got One Piece or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon tossed in there too, but they don't have volume. That concerns me if I'm walking into the store. I want to see a well-stocked shelf, right?
Yeah, you do, but anybody who's walking into a brand new store, I guess, has to accept that that's a good possibility. I mean, you have to give the owner the benefit of the doubt. They're just getting started. It takes time to build up your inventory. It takes time to build up your singles inventory. I remember when I first started singles, people would bring in singles. I had no clue what the hell I was doing. So I would just buy the box. And eventually I had a fantastic selection of inventory. I still have probably 150,000 cards that are still not in inventory yet. They're sitting in my back room on the shelf. Yeah, we've gone through them and we've looked to see if there's any really good, expensive cards. I'm talking about Magic cards. And I think there's some Yu-Gi-Oh back there. But the greatest thing was using the database and the POS system, which I didn't have at the beginning. Things have changed over 25 years. The last podcast I mentioned, we had books. And you put, cards that you thought were 50 cents in one book and cards that you thought were $1 in another book. And maybe you had some select cards. Yeah, I know how much these are. So I'm going to price them and put them in a case. But things have changed considerably over the years. Getting back to distribution too, you got to realize when you place an order that you're going to be paying usually shipping charge because each distributor has a certain amount that they'll ship for free. For instance, today I just got 5 boxes in of Magic and it's over a $6,000 order. And fortunately it was shipped for free because if I had that being shipped, you would talk maybe $150 in shipping charge. And getting back to credit card usage, if you use your credit card in paying for your order, you're going to be paying 2% because that's what the distributor will charge for it. And now they just came up with a handling fee, and you just can't get around the handling fee. And I asked my primary distributor, what the hell's the handling fee for? He said, boxes are expensive, tape's expensive, and the dunnage paper that they use is expensive. And I can appreciate that, but that's part of the business.
Well, that's also part of we'll talk in a future episode about selling online and the costs that are hidden, and some of those things go into that, and understanding that your costs that are hidden are the same as the distributors. But I know, John, we've talked before, we don't want to call out by name and create a tier list of distributors, but I think one of the things that frustrates me when I listen to podcasts like this is when you hear a lot of general information, but then I'm left still trying to Google to find who is a distributor for these kind of cards. So without telling us, your favorites or who has done you wrong in the past, can we name some of these distributors? Sure. So that people listening can try to find their websites?
Sure. There's 3 that I use. There's Alliance Games, there's Peach State, and there's Southern Hobby. And they all have multiple locations. For instance, if I want to order something from Southern Hobby and they don't have it at their prime location where I normally get shipped from, they may have it out in Reno, and I'll have it shipped from Reno. Now, getting back to that free shipping, if it's an ancillary order in addition to my regular order, say that's coming out of St. Louis, I think it's a $200 minimum that they'll ship from free. So, I try to get free shipping all the time because shipping's expensive. I'll give you, for instance, one time with Peach State, and they're a good distributor to deal with. And I wanted some bigger 1,600 count boxes, and they get them from BTW, and that's who they use. And each 1,600 count box comes with a middle, the divider, the base of the box, and the top. And it comes in a bundle. But they put it in this box. And UPS figures out the weight on dimensional weight. Dimensional weight being the height, width, depth.
It's volume based.
Depth, right. And I said to them, there's a couple other boxes, little things that I wanted, a booster box of Pokemon or whatever the hell it was. I said, put it into the big box. And I said, then have them band the 2 big boxes together, which is legitimate. Well, they didn't do that. It's not my sales rep's fault. It was the warehouse fault. So all of a sudden, I looked at the bill when it came in. It was $150 or $145 and change for shipping from New Jersey. And naturally, I called up my sales rep and I bitched and moaned about it. And she said, you're right. So they wound up crediting me back like, I don't know, $80 or something like that because it was their mistake. But you have to be careful of that.
Yeah, we got to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
Well, if we pick who we're going to be selling our cards or who we're going to be getting our stock from in terms of distribution, one of the other things that is important to go ahead and get established is being recognized by the manufacturers themselves as an organized player or an authorized retailer. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to send in applications to establish an account with them. Like for Wizards, it was 25 years ago. And I started selling Pokemon cards. And I put in an application for Wizards. And my sales rep at the time said to me, "Do you want to start selling Magic?" And I looked at him, I said to myself, "What the hell are you talking about? Magic? You know, nobody's going to come in and play Magic games." I thought it was Magic, like Hocus Pocus type stuff. And she laughed and she says, "No," she says, "it's a good card game." So after filling out the application and going through all the rigmarole and sending pictures to them and everything, I was opened up as a Wizards account. And you have to do the same thing with all the other manufacturers. Now, that's good because they'll send you, and we'll get into metrics one day. This is Wizards' way of determining how many promos you get and the size of your store and everything. It's all developed by metrics. And one day we'll get into a discussion about metrics. You know, it's changed over the years. But it's good because they'll send you support, and that's important. They'll send you promo cards, and that brings people in. Wizards, fantastic as far as their support. I remember during the pandemic when it first started happening, one of my customers says, "I want to start a GoFundMe account for the store because we're concerned that you're going to close." I said, "Well, I should be able to get through it." So it wasn't a lot of money that was collected, but it was enough to help me pay the rent that particular month. And then business started getting better again. So Wizards came out with this deal. Hey, we're going to send all the stores 18 boxes of mystery boosters free of charge, which I thought was fantastic. So what I did was I looked back on that list of GoFundMe and I said, all right, this guy donated $200, which he did. And I said, I'm going to give him 2 boxes of mystery boosters. And that was my way of paying it back. But Wizards stepped up to the pump. Konami, they sent out 1 box. But, I mean, in all deference to the company, they did what they thought they could do. However, Konami also came out with Lost Ark promos every month to help, bring in people that wanted these Lost Ark promos to increase sales. Now, they've changed that program again. And it's right now, I think the next Lost Ark promo is supposed to be coming out next month. And then next year, it's going to come out like 2 or 3 times this year. And then next year, it's going to be every other month for the Lost Ark promos. But that's an incentive. And they also started sending us OTS packs, which we used to have to pay for them. And now they'll send it to us for free, which is good because, and it depends upon the number of people that you put through an event. You get so many boxes of OTS packs and you use them as official tournament stores.
So what I'm hearing from you is that one of the important reasons to be a recognized retailer with the primary game manufacturers is that they try to support local play and local game stores by sending special types of product periodically, which is not something that you have an opportunity to receive if you're not registered with them and recognized as an OP store.
Right.
One of the drawbacks, maybe a drawback for some people, would be that you have to follow rules. They have community conduct standards. They want you to send in, sometimes Konami wants you to send in pictures of events and things like that. But the price you pay in following those rules and maintaining a happy and safe playing environment really is minimal for the payoff you get for getting these promo packs and other things.
Right, that's true.
We talked in the news a couple weeks ago, Star Wars OP, you mentioned it again today. They have OP packs that come with weekly play. Those are special promos. You're getting those because you're registered with Fantasy Flight and their organized play program.
Right. But I had to pay for those.
Well, and that's a mix, right? So some of the stuff with Fantasy Flight, you pay for some of the kits, but you don't pay for other kits, depending on what it is.
Right. Like the launch kit we got for free.
But
however, the weekly play kits we had to pay for.
But I can't just buy a weekly play kit from Fantasy Flight, right? So
No.
The only way to get those is to be recognized as a retailer and to pay them to have those in your store, and then you can distribute those as you see fit to your players.
Right. And you don't get them directly from Fantasy Flight. They come from the distributor. You pick a primary distributor. Like, for instance, Star Wars is through Asmodee, who owns Fantasy Flight, and they've picked Southern Hobby to be their prime distributor in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
which is good because Southern Hobby is my primary distributor anyway.
What about online sales? You mentioned it earlier in this episode and last time that sometimes you could get undercut even by the manufacturer of the game. How do you deal with possibly using the internet to source product, since that's what we're talking about here? Not competition with the internet, but really getting stuff from the internet. Do you spend any time looking online to try to get stuff at a discounted rate that you know you can upsell?
I did. I used, when we started doing Digimon was very, very difficult to get a hold of. And there's a secondary market for it. They're called Potomac Distribution. And they're great people to deal with. However, they're not as cheap as the primary distributor. So I bought from them on occasion. And I made some money from them. Also, when they were out of stuff, I got online and checked out some of the other locations, like Flipside Gaming up in New York, I believe they are. And I bought some stuff from them or some other people that deal directly on eBay. And, if they were selling boxes for $75 to $80, I would buy them and sell them by the pack. And I'd make up, a little bit of money on it. It wasn't as much as I would have liked, but at least I had a supply for the customers that came into the store.
Well, that's just another avenue for people to consider. If, while they're trying to get recognized as an organized play retailer, or while they're trying to get approved by a distributor, there are other avenues that you can get affordably priced product that leaves you some margin. I guess for people that don't understand margin is the difference between the amount of money that you pay as a store for the product and the amount of money that you can sell that product for, which would include your money that you would keep for your expenses and for your profit. Most people try to sell for 40% more than what they're buying the stuff for, but in retail there's a lot of fluctuation in that number, right? Between 15% margin versus like a 40% margin is kind of a range that you try to shoot for. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. One thing I also want to mention, in addition to product, as far as card type product, you're going to be selling other things in your store, like drinks and snacks. Now, when I first opened, I didn't do that. And I said to myself, there's an untapped market because people were coming in all the time with their own stuff, making a mess all over the place. And I said, that's it. So I contacted Coke, one of the local Coke distributors, and I got a Coke machine, one of those refrigerators. And they would stock it. I think you had to do it every 2 weeks or something. But I wasn't making any money. It was very, very marginal as far as the money. Maybe 10, 15 cents a bottle at the time. So I said, not going to do this. So what I did was, after a while, I told them to pick up the machine. I went and bought a refrigerator, and I started stocking it myself. And, it's not a lot of money you're going to make, but it still goes to the bottom line. And I did the same thing with snacks. You can get people come out here and stock, whatever they want to stock. And I said, nope, I'm not doing it. So I buy at Costco, I buy at Sam's Club, and I buy at BJ's every once in a while.
Do you have reseller accounts with those companies so that you can get the lower price and no sales tax?
It's not lower price. It's the same price. You don't pay the sales tax on it. But it really doesn't matter because when you do your taxes, we're going to get to that later. When you do your taxes, it's on the amount that you pay. So it all washes out. But yeah, I have a retailer account with all of them right now.
Well, I think that's a good place to cover the overview here for distribution. Why don't we jump over and talk about our 3 E's real quick? I thought maybe I'll start. You reminded me of a story I'll share real quick in terms of entertaining. Maybe it's entertaining. But you mentioned when you were first asked about selling magic cards, you thought like magic tricks. And it's funny because that's how I was introduced to the card gaming space. I had a friend of mine who I played soccer with. We were at a soccer game and his mom was taking us home. And he told me that he had gotten some new magic cards and asked if I wanted to go to his house to see the new magic cards. And I 100% thought that we were going to be doing card tricks. Like I was very excited to pick a card. Is it the 2 of spades? Is it the 2 of hearts? Whatever it was. And I got to his house and he pulls out this stack of cards with dragons and skeletons and fireballs and all kinds of stuff on it. And I didn't know what I was looking at. But he and the neighbor kids played a game. I got to see it happen. And that's pretty much how I started playing card games, was playing some Magic with those guys. But like you, I 100% thought we were talking about like sleight of hand, like Magic. And it was not Magic. It was Magic the Gathering, which has changed the way that I function for most of my life because I play a lot of games now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of funny because, yeah, I had similar, thoughts. What the hell are you talking about, Magic? All right, well, we want to get on to the 3 E's.
Yeah, let's do some more E's. What else you got?
All right, entertaining. Let me see. I think we've entertained you so far today. Let me get on to educate. Today is April 8th, okay? April 8th, almost the middle of April already. April showers bring May flowers. Last week was April Fool's Day, which we didn't touch on. And I want to read a little bit about the origins of April Fools. April Fools, from what I've read in this article, April Fool's Day dates back over 400 years. It's even older than Thanksgiving, which means there have been lots of chances for good mischief. And then it talks about here's the history of the day. And I was reading some of these witty and wise comments here. This comes from the AARP. That's the Association. It's older people's magazine. That's basically what it is. And I guess the earliest notation of April's Fool was 1582. But, the different pranks that occurred. But I think this one was funny. Back in 1974, when residents of Sitka, Alaska awoke to see smoke rising from Mount Edgecombe, officials responded to a possible volcanic eruption. But really, a group of people had piled hundreds of tires and greasy rags in the crater and set them on fire and spray painted April Fool on the snow. That was pretty good. All right, and the other thing I wanted to mention was next week is tax day. Did you do your taxes yet?
Absolutely.
I have not. As a business owner, my tax records are pathetic. I take everything each week and dump it into a banker's box. And at the end of the year, or when I'm ready to start submitting my tax to my preparer, I take everything is sorted out and, I hand her a sheet of saying, this is it, this is what you got to do. And that's what she works with. So I've already applied for an extension, so I'm good to go. And I have 6 more months, but I have to get it to her by July 1st, because she's got a lot of people that apply for extensions. And it's a pain in the neck with a business because there's a lot more to it.
Well, don't put it off.
Don't put it off. No, I'm going to do
Everybody in the country has to have their taxes done next Monday, except for you, apparently.
Well, people who apply for an extension and people in the state of Massachusetts and Maine have 2 extra days. They don't have to apply or send in their taxes until 2 days later, April 17th. And it's because due to Patriots' Day and Emancipation Day holidays, taxpayers living in Massachusetts or Maine have until April 17th. And I found out another little factoid. 9 of 10 people submit their taxes online, which is pretty good because it prevents possibility of fraud. So that's something new. I mean,
that doesn't shock me. I've been putting my taxes in online for 20 years.
Well, as an old timer like me, it took me a while because I used to do it myself through TurboTax, and it was a pain in the ass to do. And that's why I got an accountant that does my taxes for me now.
I think that's wise. Maybe one day we'll talk about accountants and other professionals that the card shop business might need to interact with.
Definitely.
Well, John, I think that brings us to a good place to close us out today. What do you think?
Sounds good to me, Noah.
All right. Well, next time I think we'd like to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of organized play. We'll give an overview of how that works in the store. It ties really well into those new OP and seller accounts that we just talked about people need to get to run a store. But if you guys have enjoyed this podcast and you enjoy listening to us talk about the behind the scenes stuff in the Card Shop Insider, it'd be really helpful if you would subscribe to our podcast on any and all of the platforms that are available. We also do have basic tier Patreon available if you want to give us some support that way. We've had a recent discussion. I think we're going to look at possibly having on that first tier an option to have stickers or other sort of product that we could send out to people that subscribe to that tier, and we'll have an update about that coming shortly. And then always follow us on social media. We're going to start, as I said last time, we're ready to go ahead and start posting. We'll be, by the time you listen to this, hopefully we'll be actively posting on Instagram and Twitter with some short clips from the show and also our opinions or updates about some of the news that's coming around the industry. So thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you with us next week.
Thanks. I appreciate you listening also. Have a good day, guys.